All right, so let's start. So today we're gonna continue with OOP exercises. So basically we're gonna do what we didn't have time to finish on Thursday and Tuesday. We'll answer some interview questions. We'll go over the homework and yeah, we'll start new topic as well in the end. All right, so let's start with our retro. Let me copy the URL and create a board for you. Mm-hmm. All right, guys, I'm gonna post in a Slack link to this idea board, so you'll feel free to start adding notes. Yeah, so basically the same idea as the last Saturday. Just post the notes in a what went well section, like which part you like most, and what went well specifically for you or for your team. So for what can be improved, you can add like what you didn't like or what we can do to make our course even better than it is right now. And action item, like we can actually figure it out all together after it's all done. All right, so go ahead, open the link and start to add notes. I'll give you a couple minutes to fill this up. Okay, I'll give you 1 more minute and we can like start to go over these stickers that you put. All right, so I guess we can go over. So more exercises. Does it mean that you guys satisfied with the amount of the coding exercises I gave you, or you mean like you like them and you want more?
I think it's worked very well, so it's like.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We like it.
Okay. Okay. That's good. Logical exercises, communication on stand-ups. Yeah, so it's not like logical exercises. I mean, it's logical exercises, but it's more like algorithm kind of solving exercises. And these exercises you most probably will be facing once you will go to the interview for QA automation role. So, I mean, yeah, I'm glad that you liked it. This week was perfect. The last class in particular was full structures. There was some delay in communication, but we already discussed it. Okay, I'm glad to hear that. I'm just curious, what's the delay in communication was mentioned here? It mentioned it was discussed, but I'm not sure if I was a part of this discussion. So can anyone speak?
Yeah, it was me actually, Azad. So I think we spoke about this on Tuesday. Remember at the beginning of the lesson, I think it was Andrei who posted a question in the chat.
Oh, yeah.
Slack, right?
Okay.
Yeah, but we discussed it already. So I think there is no need to repeat this information again, I think, right?
I mean, yeah, but who missed it? So basically, if you post a question in a channel and nobody replies you can ping someone in a private message and remind him, because we will get notification once you will do that.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can also in a channel, if you start with what is this channel or @here, those are different kind of eye catchers, like whoever is online, or the whole channel will be kind of forced with the message.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. I mean, my point is, for example, if someone faced like some particular issue, and you guys can just clarify the solution, for example, just for all of us, it would be much more easier, not just to bother you with the same question, but just take a look at how it was done, how it was resolved, and just follow this particular solution.
Yeah, that's why I'm thinking that posting in a channel, in a group channel, is actually better than the personal message.
Yeah, so we are using the general channel, right?
Yeah.
For this, okay, sounds good.
Yeah, I mean like private message. I meant actually like if you post in a general channel and nobody replies you, you can like feel free to ping us there. Yeah, because sometimes we also at work and don't have time to check all the Slack messages. So I'm trying to like get back as soon as I can, but sometimes there's some delays.
Right. Okay. I mean, that's totally understandable, of course. Yeah. You guys busy with your own stuff, right? Yeah. But once you get a chance, once you see it, like just try to reply like as soon as you can, I guess.
Yeah, sure. We will do that. Thank you for putting it here. All right. So what can be improved? Finish code review first, which was done. So code review, you mean by your teammates or by us as a UAC exception? Is anyone can speak up a little bit about it?
Yeah, it's me. Yeah, I just fixed it. You know, when you just commented, and it was waited for the 2 days till Friday, and it's still there. Just maybe it
Oh,
was.
really?
Yeah, it's okay. Just
Did you move it to the wait? So you moved it to the code review column or UAT column?
code review.
No, it's not for code review. You need to ask your roommates. You need not your roommates, teammates. Teammates, yeah. Your teammates to do a code review. So it basically, you see, it's basically two phases of the code review, right? So one is from students.
And it's called peer review.
Yeah, peer review, and the last one is from us. Like we're kind of like final point. So you need to, if you move to the code review, you need to ping. Like you need to be proactive, ask someone to help you out to do code review. And once it's passed, you will need to move it to the UAC column.
I got you. Okay.
I would actually say whoever is doing that, they should do it. They should move it from code review.
Yeah. Like once it passed, if like person passed your code review, it should move it to the UAT column.
Oh, really? Okay. I didn't know.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's your tickets. You can also like control it, right? Like if someone passed it but didn't move, you can do it by yourself.
Yeah. Review yourself.
I mean, not review, just to move the ticket itself. If you, I mean, or just ping.
But yeah, just in general, we're usually pulling the tickets, right? We're not pushing them. We're pulling them, meaning that if tickets in some ticket in like ready for code review column, whoever is available should really pull it, right? The opposite, like whoever is available, pull it, and basically then just move it to like ready for UAT, right? So now we can see, and like whoever is available on our side, we see it's ready, then we can take a look, right? Not like you assigning it to me, but I'm not available, let's say at the moment, right? Or anyone else, so the opposite.
Mm-hmm. All right, time for exercises during the class. Yes, that was a problem this week. So because, I mean, the problem I think was that the topic was kind of hard and it took us a little bit more time to explain things than we expected. And that's why we didn't have a time to do exercises, but I will keep it in mind and I will try to make it shorter, the explanation itself for you. Okay, communication between online classes, communication behind online classes between teachers and students. Is it comes to the same thing when we didn't reply to your Slack messages, or it's like something different?
Yeah, it's the same thing.
The same thing. Okay, we'll keep it in mind.
Thank you.
More Java lesson with clear explanation. What would be? So you said like more Java. Okay.
So like a theory, right? Well, the previous one is about like practical. This one is theories. Okay.
Yeah, actually, we're gonna do more lessons. It won't be like about Java itself, but it will be in a pair of the tools that we're gonna use, especially in Selenium. It will be a lot of Java, but with Selenium code. So don't be worried about it, guys. Parsing homework assignments.
Parsing, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. What do you mean by that?
You guys really into it. Parsing homework assignments. Wow.
Yeah. Does anyone wants to speak up about it?
Maybe you should give us homework in JSON.
Right?
Or XML. Yeah. Okay. Does anyone wants to speak up, or we can just move? Because I haven't understand the.
So tickets are not clear, or what's the issue, guys? I know you're there, whoever wrote this. It's been like 5 minutes. Come on.
Okay, let's move on. And whoever wants to talk about it a little bit later, we can do that. So more examples of Java. What kind of examples? You mean like code examples or?
Yeah, maybe like more code examples.
Code examples. Okay.
Like when we switch to IntelliJ IDEA and
Yeah, like
write something like
yeah,
during
like,
the class. Is
yeah,
that what
like-
you meant?
Yeah, maybe I'm missing.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Noted. +1 for more exercises should not they not necessarily should be. Okay, this should be as part of our homework. Just
Sorry,
some-
how come it's not? It doesn't fit the screen.
Let me scroll.
Shouldn't it be exactly what you see?
No, it's not mirroring. It's a different one. All right. +1 for more exercises. They not necessarily should be as part of our homework. Just some popular interview questions so we can practice. I mean, okay, we can try to do that. Try to add more information as additional to the homework and not require for you to do that. Yeah, I mean, the idea was just for practice, keep it in classes as a homework. And at the same time, we didn't want to overwhelm you with all this like practice because we all understand you are working. But as an additional, not required thing, we can add something just to practice. So yeah, noted as well. Give materials for this kind of hard topics OOP, so in class we will have more time for answering questions only. You mean like the same as we did for Java Core?
Yeah, it was mine.
It was yours? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we spent like two whole classes to explain OOP, which is kind of hard. You're not just listening, you need kind of think about it, like read a couple times or maybe more, some practice. So it's kind of big material, so probably it's a good idea to give in advance some materials or videos to watch, and then like go to the class kind of.
Okay, we can do that.
Yeah.
I mean, our original approach with Java Core, like not everyone liked it because I kind of like give videos, but that's why I'm kind of like skipped the all theory part, right? And it turns out like some of them like wasn't clear enough, and that's why we had this situation when someone didn't understand something, but it was, yeah, we will do that. We will try tomorrow.
Yeah, and when you watch the video reading the some topic, it's kind of save your time because it's really into it, really short, and I don't know how to explain it. Yeah, in the class there's more questions. There's more time.
More QA session.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. It's noted as well. All right, guys. So we're done with sticky notes, and now let's go to our next week home assignments. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, I see in Jira there's like some of the. Let me put a link here. I see some of them are in ready for UAT. I think last time I checked it was yesterday night. Some of them this morning, like I will do after class as well. But if you guys finish some of the exercises you want to check, you can just pull up to the next sprint and I will do that for you. All right, so let's go to the backlog. So actually for next week, it should be relatively easy homeworks. I mean, kind of the same as this week as well. So first of them is we're getting back to the writing bullets for your resume. So you can add at least like 3 bullets that was covered for previous OOP session. I mean, exactly the same as you did for the first one, but this was for a previous one. The same idea. Just we can reuse it later for your resume. Make sense, guys? One? Okay. Does anyone have any issues with creating a bullets? Or maybe it took like more than 1 day for that? Okay, I'll take it as a no. So interview questions for Java OOP. Okay, so we already covered Java OOP, right? So what you guys will need to do, you will need to open this link and go over the Java OOP questions that's maybe asked on the interview.
Can you open that?
Yeah, just the basics.
20,
20,
30, 21.
22.
Can I ask a question?
Uh-huh.
Do they really ask a question about Java OOP on the interview?
They can, I mean, they can ask you to see if you understand the basics of Java. And like, let's say, like, do you know what's the inheritance in Java? Like, okay, so you work with Java, right? But like, do you understand the basic concepts of it? So this kind of questions, they covered, like, I mean, what's the class? Like, you should like know what's the class. Like, otherwise, it will be weird how you could work with automation. I mean, yeah, they can ask you like at some basic level. Yeah, it's like a basic, really basic stuff that we already covered. So I don't think here would be any problem.
Yeah, very important question here is like list like all the OOP concepts that you know.
I remember at university when I learned C#.
Basically, all of this.
They asked me that question and I failed.
Well, the next follow-up question could be like, how do you use them in whatever like framework you, and you usually use them. Maybe you don't realize that. Well, for now, maybe it's too early. But once we start actually working with the framework, the real framework, then we will see like, oh, this is this concept used here. This is another concept.
Mm-hmm.
So it will become more clear.
Yeah. So what's the estimate, guys? Consider it as your days. Like, consider it as not like full day, but part of your day. As a full day.
Evening.
Yeah, evening. You don't need to learn them. You need just to go over and try to understand.
Yeah, one.
One, okay. Okay, any objections about the one? Okay, I'll take it as a no. So starting next week, we're gonna start web automation. And for web automation, we will use Selenium because that's a standard. There's like no way you will know the web automation without knowing Selenium. So, so basically, you just need to watch a video. I think it's like 6 or 8 minutes. It's like really short, explaining the basic of Selenium. And also here's like a few Medium articles about the Selenium and web automation. Yeah, and basically that's it. That's all you need to do. Any question, guys? Okay, what's the estimate?
Selenium in 60 seconds.
One.
No,
What
6
are
minutes.
we, oh, 60 minutes.
No, 6
I
minutes.
was like, what are we doing here? Something is wrong. Like,
Yeah, it's just a basic understanding, like the overview of the tool and how it works. All right, how much? 1? 2? Okay. Okay, guys, more interview algorithm questions that you liked and pointed. So this one is called FizzBuzz. You probably heard about it. It's like one of the mostly asked questions on the interview. So basically, you will.
I got a job because of this guy.
I mean, yeah. So basically, you will need to write a program which will go like from the list from the range 1 to 100, and for numbers which multiply by 3, it needs to print fizz word. For a number that multiplies by 5, it should print buzz word. And for a number which multiply by 3 and 5, it should print fizz buzz. Like let's say for a 15, because it's multiplied by 3 and 5, it should print fizz buzz. For like a 10, it should print the buzz word.
Or you can say if the number can be divided by 3.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I don't think it should be a problem for you guys because like after solving the palindrome issue, right?
I would say I would say the most time for you should be spent on understanding the issue, the question, right? Especially during the interview, they can give you some random stuff, even though it may be just a one loop, but especially when you're stressed out, can take you like some time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I attached a video about the loops, so like just to refresh your mind. All right, so how many points, guys?
Let's put it 2.
Okay. Considering code review and all of the stuff.
Yeah, guys. Yeah, it really means that's a good point. When we say 2, it means end to end, from like reading, understanding. If you need to Google it, peer review, user acceptance review, everything to all the way to done, right?
But it also depends on other person.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and usually when it comes to your particular team, it's usually way faster, but in the companies, if it's up to some other team or department, even it can take like months, really. Months, no joke, I hate that. I would do like so many things, but I cannot because I'm just waiting for months for some other people.
Yep. All right, 2. And the next one, basically the same thing here, but the only difference is here you will need to use, I mean, in this exercise, you will need to use recursion. Recursion, yeah, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but I think it's
recursion.
Recursion, yeah. So all you will need to do is recursion to solve this FizzBuzz exercise. We're gonna talk a bit about it today. But this is a real interview question that was asked me recently, actually.
Are you looking for another job?
No, not like recently. I mean, like in October or September. But it was a kind of final. It's kind of like was final round of the interview, and like after I solved it, I think they just made me an offer. But it's not that hard. Like we're gonna talk about the recursion today, so I will give you like example how we will do it today, and we're actually gonna practice with it.
If it's similar to the previous one, I think it's good.
Yeah, I agree. Any concern, guys?
Yep.
Okay, sure. All right, so we have that's all that you will need to finish by Friday, basically.
It's more points than days.
Yeah.
Challenge accepted.
Well, yeah, that's why points are not days. You can actually have more, or well, you usually you're supposed to have less usually, but again, it's something like flexible. You usually adjust based on the previous sprints and based on the team space.
I feel we kind of estimated it for a real 2-week sprints. And our sprint is 1 week. That's why there are discrepancies.
I mean, we have a whole Saturday and half a whole Sunday and half of Saturday, so.
And no life.
I mean, that's a boot camp.
Yeah.
Right. Otherwise, it's gonna take us not 14 weeks, but like 30 weeks and 50 and.
Yeah. I mean, we said it too, but I think it will take you less than 2 days. I mean, hopefully. I mean, if you feel that will be overwhelmed, you can like tell me next Saturday, and I will make it like less stressful. I mean, it's pretty much the same amount, right? As we did like last week. Don't you think so?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so let's go back to our presentation. Let's open it here. So let's do quick interview question exercises here, right? So what I will need to do, guys, I will need to your participation just to finish OOP topics in Java. So from what you guys remember, what's the core concepts of OOP that we covered on Tuesday and Thursday?
Inheritance,
Mm-hmm.
polymorphism,
What else?
encapsulation,
And?
abstraction.
Yeah, that's right answer. And what's the difference between procedural programming and OOP? Do you guys remember that?
Like an object, that's you don't need to, follow the like a strings. They had like a connection with the objects, like classes, just.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. It's object, right? Object oriented. So it's all done through the objects. Everything is object. I mean, whatever you're dealing with, those are all objects, and they can communicate and interact with each other somehow.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're a human being, you're an object. You have hand, which is composition. Hand is not human being, but it's a part, right? So, but this is different object. And then your palm is different object of the hand itself. And then fingers, right? But they all interconnected, right? With a composition, high level, the body, and then objects, underneath more objects. And that's you can imagine pretty much the whole entire world with like hundreds or thousands layers going like to the space and back to like molecules, if you wish, but You don't have to usually code like that much. You only stick to like some certain layers, but yeah.
Yeah, but to simplify this answer, you can just say that object-oriented concept. It's when your program is basically consists like all the separate objects which communicate to each other and work like as a one program communicating, but which is different in procedural programming, where your program is basically one file, and yeah, there's like less objects communication involved on it. That's like a main difference. All right, so and what's the class and what's the object? Do you guys understand what's the difference between them? Okay, what's the class? What's the class, guys?
They're like objects. The class is actually a file. There's a file, and also it's some pattern to make the objects. Way how to make it.
Like a template.
Yeah, template.
Template, yeah.
Blueprint.
Right.
Right. So there was an interview question of one of my friends. They asked like, so they literally just take like the piece of paper like this, and they ask like, would it be object or class or what is this? So what is this?
Object.
Object, exactly.
Yes.
What would be the class?
The class would be the plant that makes this.
No,
The
just
factors that makes this.
napkin class, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That's it. But this is real. I mean, you can touch it. It has like colors and weight. This is real thing. Right? Is it clear?
All right, and what's the difference between instance method and static method? Should be easy, guys.
Yeah, in static method we declare and initiate some particular value for the variables. But in the instance method we can change it now. This method actually changed the value of each variable.
Not exactly. You're talking about the what's it called? Encapsulation, probably, right? When we have stricted.
No, I'm talking about static.
Static?
in my understanding.
Yeah. Can you repeat it again?
Another example.
Yeah.
Well, static method always declare some particular value to variable, right? And you cannot change it in static method.
No.
Mm.
So guys, this is another example. I'm holding 4 napkins, right? 4 objects. What's in common here? Like this blue thing, right?
Drawing, yeah.
The drawing is common, and it's the same for all 4. What does it say to me? All these napkins of this kind, I can have like a whole box or truck of them, like millions of them. They will all have the same pattern, which makes this pattern static. It's applicable to any of those, right? You getting the idea?
Yes.
So you don't have to declare it every time for every object. You say like static means like for all of these napkins, it's gonna be always the same. So you can actually even detach it from the napkin. You can say like whatever napkins they will all have the same, right?
But if it's instance, it can be different.
But if it's instance, one can be like blue, another one can be green, another one can be some other color pattern and size, right? So you can say, for instance, it's like instance specific, right? So it can be changed from one object to another, right? Like we all wearing different clothes, right? So it's like instance specific, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in the school, they have this school uniform, which is static again, right? Makes sense? No?
Yes.
Yeah.
You're right.
All right, and question number 5, it's actually what Yumilat asked me. What's the constructor method? And what's it used for? Online guys, any of you remember Tuesday's lesson?
That it's not return anything.
Yeah, it's a like a giving. For example, it's a car, and you can give them like a color, you know, like something like a model, name, something else, like you're giving some description, you know.
Yeah, but do you remember in which stage we're doing that? Like, what's the difference between constructor and regular instant methods in a class?
So, okay.
That constructor what gives that object certain attributes.
In which level? Like when it does?
During instantiation.
Initiation, yeah.
Initiation.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, guys.
Or instantiation?
I think it's instantiation, actually.
Instantiation with initiate.
Instance, right? Instance.
Instance, okay.
Because it's instance, right?
Okay.
So thinking about this this way, before you can live in the building, you need to build it, or in other words, construct the building, right? So constructor is nothing but a way of creating an object in this case. So without, and basically at that moment, you can specify like what are the attributes or properties this particular object will have, right? Well, again, it's only for instance specific. For static, it doesn't matter. All the buildings are the same, right? Remember, if you like in Russia, there is like, what's the 9 stories, so like what's the 95 kind of class, or all those 9 stories buildings, they are all the same. No, the newer one. Yeah, panel ones. So that's basically like static again. So when they build them, they have, I mean, it's all the same. At the same time, you can get some different attributes. You can build like 5 stories, 3 stories, 1 story, 5 bedroom, red color, whatever. So at the moment of creation, you define like, you can define like, okay, this one is going to be like this size and whatever it is, right? Is it clear?
And you shouldn't assign a value to this.
So there are 2 options. Sometimes you can create an empty object, basically, just like a container, like a placeholder, but you don't know. Like there was an example, like we knew that Evgeny has car, but we don't know what's the model or color. So we just create that object for him, but once we get the response from him back, we will assign those values to his color. But for now, we just know that it's there, right? Otherwise, you can actually create it at the moment of creation, you can assign those values immediately. So it's ready to use. I mean, both works, but it's up to you to declare like how you want to do that, because you don't, it's basically like object specific thing, like whatever object is, you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So do you usually use constructor methods in automation?
Yeah, it's one of the example would be, and we're gonna talk about later, but let's say if you're initiating the, what's it called? Fixture, just like a helper method, and you can, like in a constructor, you can specify the processes that you wanna run after you initiate the class. Let's say opening the browser, right? So it will open it automatically without adding in the code to open it.
Okay.
Or like, I don't know, database connections, or like API calls, or like anything, basically.
So yeah, the problem here is that sometimes you can work with that object without any properties assigned to it, and in that case, it usually will like crash. So to prevent those things, I would recommend you assign those values immediately, so it's ready to be, consumed. However, again, it's up to you.
Mm-hmm. All right. So can we move on, or it's still not clear for you guys? All right.
So can you actually go back? I don't think we covered that, but that's another interview question, which is, to the class, yeah, object. So all the classes in Java are actually have something in common. Like all those cars that we created, like any single class has something in common. And the thing there is a object class in Java, which all the classes are inherited from. You probably don't know about that, but all the classes are nothing but they inherit the object class. So this is object class is a parent for any class in Java. And that's why you get toString method hash, what's the hash code or n equals. That's why you get them automatically. We will get to that later on, but just for you to know, there is object capital O. It's a class. It's the most important class in Java. Just remember it.
Yep, interesting thing to know. And all right, so continuing to our Thursday session, what's the inheritance, guys? What's the main purpose of inheritance?
When the child object inherit the inherit everything from its parent class.
And what exactly are we inheriting?
To pass the certain attributes from superclass to slave class or whatever, subclass.
Yeah. That's actually the main purpose of it. Do you remember what's the parent class called in this case?
Superclass.
Yeah, and the child?
Subclass.
Yeah. That's right. What's the encapsulation?
Protection?
Protection from what? Or for what? Yeah, for who? From yourself, probably.
From hostile environment.
Yeah. Come on, guys, give me like more broad answer.
So when all subclasses have private, they are private, not public but private. So only they can be used only in one parent class. I don't remember exactly.
Yeah, you're basically just abstracting some irrelevant information. Not necessarily like protecting or hiding. You still, as a programmer, you can just go to that class. It's not like, it's not locked with the password or anything. It's still there, but you cannot access it. And usually it's done on purpose. So they say like, you really don't want to know, and you really don't want to use this, because if you do that, probably you can actually break it, some logic underneath if you call it directly. Because they say, well, you know what, if you want to do something, you actually have to go here, and that will call it, and it will do the stuff. However, if you try to call this will only do some part of it. So the whole logic of that object, of those methods, can be broken now. And if it's broken, since you're not the creator of those things, it's going to be a hard time for you trying to figure out like why it's not working and what's wrong with this. So that's kind of they really want to show what's needed for you and what's not needed, because it's too complicated. They just want to hide it away from you. And it's for your own safety.
Yeah. But overall, it was the right answer, Sergey. But what's the abstraction, guys? In this case. Yes, you remember I didn't give you like a practical example of abstraction.
I think actually you did.
Yeah, you did.
I did?
I remember this vehicle, right? And then vehicle, we have car, we have boat. Those are different abstraction layers, really. On the top level, it's like vehicle. So vehicle, what does it mean? It can be driven by something somehow. Let's say if it's electric car, it's still vehicle. will be driven by like electric power, right? Boat, which is vehicle as well, it can be actually driven by like even wind, right? But it's still driven. So vehicle, the whole thing of vehicle is to be able to move, right? Transport, basically. So but those are details. So boats, they have something in common, right? They actually don't use the wheels and roads, but they use water, right? And then slide on the water. They're still moving, but it's a different. Aircraft is vehicle as well, right? But it's completely different details, like implementation. So those abstraction layers for vehicle, you don't know the details. It's just like very high level, something that's moving and can carry some people or whatever around, right? But then you go down and then like, oh, you can actually swim, you can like fly, you can like drive, right? And then you can go even further and you can say like cars, bicycles, like motorcycles, right? Like skateboards, whatever, right? So those are different abstraction layers. And even from the bottom, you can actually utilize something from the top because they all moving, right?
Mm-hmm. And in the end, what's the polymorphism, guys? What of what?
A lot of forms.
Forms of what? Yeah.
Forms of yeah, I'm not sure yet.
Okay, online, guys. Actually, give you example in a coding level how it looks like, if you remember.
Yeah. So actually, it's ability to use one particular method from different classes, right? Calling this method from different classes.
So morphism, right?
Yeah.
Calling. So like it's many forms you can say or behaviors. So you can change the behavior of the same object or method, right? Based on like the details. So for vehicle, you would say, I mean, it should be able to move around somehow, right? But it doesn't say much. For if you go down, you can actually define like, what do you mean? For cars, it's actually the wheels, right? And that's how it, so you're changing. But for boat don't have any wheels, right? So for boat, you can actually say, you know what, I'm gonna redefine this. For boat, it's still moving around, but it does it in its own way, right? Even within the cars, you have like 3-wheel cars, like this fancy like sport cars, or I don't know, maybe it's like, well, it's not motorcycle, I don't know, but basically it's a car, but it's like 3 wheels, right? Tricycle, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can redefine that for every single class. You can say like, you can use like what's given from top, or you can say, well, in this case, I'm gonna do it. You can actually mix them. In fact, you can call super method as well.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Is it clear, guys?
Yeah. Do you have any questions?
I feel like it's not really still. I mean, this is tough, yes, but once we get, probably it's one of the most kind of complicated things. But once we get to work with the actual framework, we will point those things out. Like every time we see it, we will say like, okay, what's the concept being used here? Because that's another interview question. Like, tell me like the OP principles and how do you use them, right? So by the end of the course, you should be able to answer exactly with understanding like how do we use them.
All right, so let's go next. So you guys have all laptops, right? All right. So basically, we're gonna do some exercises. They should be simple. That's basically exercises that we didn't have time to finish on Tuesday. So the first one is you will need to create a class, and within the class to initiate the integer, assign it to the 5. initiate this class within like another class and print this integer. Second one is you will need to create a class, and within this class create a static method to print I'm a static method string. For the third one, the same idea, you will need to create a class with constructor that will take parameters of x within initialization and initialize it and print it. You will probably need to memorize our Tuesday class. Do you guys remember how we did that, or do you have any questions? Yeah, you can try to try to do it by yourself. Like in case you won't be able to do it, we can like see others implementations and others approaches. I will post it in a Slack channel, and the same. You guys will need to do the same thing as we did on last session. So just post your solutions here, and we will go over it. So you guys all have IntelliJ IDE installed, right?
Yes.
Okay. Because interaction with your classes, you will need to use some kind of IDE, because I don't think you'll be able to use it in online compilers. Any question, guys?
Yes, I'm.
Go ahead, Mehmet.
I have question about the. What's the name? That's sorry. Let's see. Yeah, it's the same for the Python as well. Is I am about. Not about OOP. Like I know for the different like object-oriented language, you know.
Yeah, it's exactly
same. Yeah,
yeah, it's the same concept in the general. I mean, Python, because like Python itself, it's a simplified kind of programming language, so it kind of allows you. I mean, first of all, in Python, there is no encapsulation at all, like in the standard way. Like you cannot make your methods private or public, right? I mean, they're all public by default, but there's kind of like a common agreement that you need to specify, let's say, underscore to your method if it's a private or protected. But like overall, the whole concept is the same.
Okay.
You will also need to create classes. You will also need to initiate classes, work with objects. And also, like in Python, you don't necessarily need to create class for your program. You can like just create like separate functions and without assigning to a class. And your class shouldn't be like in one file. It's not necessarily should be one class. You can create a file and define multiple classes within this file.
Yeah, I would say that if you want to get some more details, those languages are dynamic, like Python, so they are interpreted, right? So, and Java is compiled language. What's different between them? Java is strict, very strict language. Why? Because at compile time, we want to prevent those issues. Without actually run your code, you want to prevent all the errors possible. So when you run the code, it gives you some confidence that it should be okay. It still doesn't prevent 100% of issues. You can still get runtime, but the number of errors, you want to kind of fix them before you even run them. When in dynamic languages like JavaScript, Ruby, Python, Groovy, whatever, application doesn't know anything. It just happens at runtime. It can be string, but it can be an integer. And application just has no idea what's going to be. So it has to decide how to deal with that without breaking. So that's the biggest difference. And that's why all these classes, what's class and what's OOP, it's a relationship between objects. Objects are well-defined, no surprises there. It has to be this object no matter what, right? So if something wrong is coming in, then it will crash. But you should prevent that. No surprises at all. When in Python, that's the thing. You never know what's you're gonna get. So that's why like dynamic languages are really not that strict.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right, we have the first answer. It's nice. Okay, I will give you I don't know, like 5 more minutes. Is it enough, guys, or you need like more time? Okay, let's wait for 5 more minutes, and if you will need more time, just let me know. Okay, we have 3 replies. Let's wait for 2 more and we can start to go over. Any more guys? Anyone else? Ready? Is it hard for you guys to memorize like lessons from Tuesday and Thursday? Do you feel like you need to refresh your mind completely? Okay.
Yeah, I have one more thing. So guys, when you create a class, please think about the name of that class. It has to be very, very easy to read and understand what is that about. So when you call a class which is like main, what does it mean?
I just created something like it is. Because if I execute it, it will not run if it's not the main.
No.
It's about the method main, but class you can name it.
Oh, so class can be any
Yeah.
class.
Yeah.
Even
So you have a lot of power. So you have class name, and then you have instance name, right? So instance is object of the class. So if class, let's say car, you can imagine the car, right? So you can understand what it's supposed to do, at least like some basics, right? But then the instance itself, you can say like Honda Civic 2012, right? That's exactly what it is. So if you see in your code Honda Civic and Mercedes C-Class, you already in your brain, you can really think like about these instances as the real cars, right? Is it clear? So please never name your objects like or main or class, default class. No, give it a real name, because it's a programming language. It is a language of how developers communicate with each other. So it has to be very clear to anyone.
Yeah. No QWERTY classes. No QWERTY classes.
Yeah, there is a rule. I believe you have to spend like 80% of time to giving a name to your class or method or whatever, and only 20 for its implementation, right? Think about it.
All right, guys, this is your last chance to submit your code. Because we have like 2 more for this exercise, I don't want to waste more time on it.
So yeah, in this particular example, you should name it like in some, I don't know, integer 5 class or something like that. So at least it gives some idea of what it is, right?
All right, so let's go to your replies that you guys gave. So first one from Alex. So what he's doing here, he's initiating an integer, assigning its value 5, and calling this calling this method and printing the integer. I mean, yeah, that was a way to do that. The only thing is,
in fact, I believe it's not gonna work
because it's the same class.
No.
It works.
It works?
It prints 5, yeah?
It does?
Yeah.
Okay.
Why not?
Well, by default, I believe, technically, if you don't declare the access level, it should be private, usually. Well, maybe not, but...
No, they are public by default.
No, class itself, but not the field, right?
You mean the attribute?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right, so let's go to the next one.
Yeah, I mean, that's the same.
Yeah,
right?
the same thing.
Yeah, easy.
Also, no access level.
Yeah.
Here as
Well,
well.
maybe it's a C# thing. Yeah, but it's actually the right thing. By default, so again, encapsulation, by default, everything should be private. Just keep it in mind. Whatever you do, it has to be private, unless you want to explicitly make it public.
Yeah, that's a good
That's
practice.
the good practice.
So in what the case it should be public?
If you want to expose it, like in this case, you want to expose X, so it should be public then. But usually, whatever you create should be always private by default.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Okay. This is encapsulation kind of in real world.
So it should be public only if you want to take some data from this class.
If you
Yeah,
want to
exactly.
let it be kind of
But
reusable.
I assume that it's pretty often happen now.
It's up to you, but the whole concept of getters and setters actually against this. All the fields should be wrapped with methods, with getters and setters. You should not allow anyone to interact with fields directly,
Yeah.
bypassing getters and setters. Why? Because you may want to have some extra logic, not just assigned to 5, but you may want to have some other field for internal purposes that you want to also assign based on the value. If it's 5, then it could be like, I don't know, true fees. If it like 3, it could be buzz, right? Something like that. So that's why it's all wrapped, so you can have more logic if you need to. And if you don't do that, in this case, it's just a field, so there is no way you can modify your class if your application is using it or somebody else using it. There is no way you can modify it. But if it's wrapped in the method, they will still be using those methods, but within the method, you can actually modify your code. It's more about, yeah, it's a little bit confusing. It's more about like interfaces, which we will cover later on. But yeah, just a few things here and there. But I mean, rather than that, yeah, it's fine.
I mean, yeah, if it works, it works. If it passes code review, like, that's all you need to know, guys. All right, so the last Walls solution, it's a bit different. It's kind of like using the 2 classes, but the idea is the same, and it's all gonna work. All right, guys. Let's switch to the exercise number 2. So here, you will also need to create a class, but within this class, create static method and call this static method. You can also print something. I mean, yeah, print like the string I am a static method.
Well, that was
Right.
fast.
Yeah.
Hey, let us finish. Let us finish explaining, guys. You're in a roll.
You know that guy in the classroom who always did something first, but it's all wrong. And
All right, 2 answers. Let's wait for 2 more.
Yeah.
Oh, for what? Treats? For what?
For us.
Yeah.
We deserve it.
For teachers.
For all of us, right?
Yeah, who'll finish it first? will
So
get the
guys,
cake.
question of the day: if you inherit static method, can you apply polymorphism to it? What? What are you talking about?
I guess no.
How does static and polymorphism work together? Yeah, why not?
Because it's static, you know.
Because it's static, exactly.
You cannot change it.
You cannot change it. It applies to all of the instances. It doesn't make sense, right? So that's the problem with the static. Once you declare static, there is no way you can really manipulate it in the future, which is kind of, it's actually a bad practice. Just try to not use static. I mean,
Not
at all,
use
but
static.
I mean, sometimes it's fine, but usually it's, try to avoid that. Alright.
How about overload?
Uh-huh. I don't think we teach that yet, right?
Yeah.
Overloading. That's a,
Interesting question.
I usually don't use static just at all.
Yeah, that is hard. I mean, it's part of polymorphism, not only overriding,
Mhm.
but also overloading methods. Many other constructor methods are overloaded.
But where do you overload it? In the child?
It can be overloaded in the same class.
In the same class.
Even if it is not a child or parent,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
you can overload any method of it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are lots of constructions in general classes
Mhm.
in Java that are overloaded.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, there could be tricky questions regarding to that. So you cannot override static methods, but you can overload.
Yeah, I think we will talk about overloading a little bit later, right?
Yes. Step by step.
All right. 3 replies already. Is anyone wants to add more? All right, let's go over it. You can add actually once we will do that. Maria's idea was to call this method within the like call it somewhere. So you're declare it, but you didn't call it, right?
Why?
So you
No, there is no declaration.
Create a class within the class, create static method to print.
Yeah, where is that method within the class?
you have a main method, but I mean it's also static, yeah. But
Yeah.
So I should have probably specified. You need like create like one more static method and call it there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, the same thing I like for it as well.
I mean, the main method is static already, so it's going to be.
Yeah, I just wanted to practice you to.
But
call
I think Alex
calling.
got it right. Right?
Yeah, I just know how to Google it.
Okay, let's talk about the Alex solution. Let's say if this method, right, if it will be like, if the main method wouldn't be in the same class, how would you call it? How would you change your code?
And yeah, usually it's actually separate class.
If it's separate class, you need to name it, then dot, and this.
Yeah, that's the correct answer. So you will need to provide
the name of what?
Of class.
Of class, right?
Name
Not
of
not
class.
the instance, right? Well, I think you can do both, right?
Yeah, you can do both.
What
You
is
can
instance?
you can
Instance,
create object from the class and call it.
Where is create object? So the class is the class.
It's itself because the class is
So
it's
you can,
a single class, so within the class, you can call pretty much whatever you want. Even protected level or like private level still allows you to call any method within the class. And in this particular case, for some reason, main method within the same class is the one above. So, which usually kind of not the case. Usually main method, it's like completely separate. Again, what's the main method? It's application, your application, right? It's like very high level, your program. What does your program do? It manipulates with some objects, some data within, I don't know how, but those are lower levels, and then lower levels and lower levels, right? But the program itself is higher level, so it's completely separate class, right? Where it's all kind of combined somehow. In this case, like it's all within the same class, but usually it's those objects are different classes.
Yeah, so basically if you'll do something like that, just initiate an object and call it within this object, it will still work. But because it's a static method, you can just do it, as Mario basically said, just to add class name and call it within the class without initiating it.
Which would be practice dot my method.
Yeah.
Right? Can you maybe add that? You can, with static, you can do either way, because since it's static, it applies to all the objects. You can mix the static methods in different instances, right? Like this napkin, like they all like blue in the same pattern, so it's static. But I mean, technically, those are different instances. It's just not like just one single instance. It's like 4 of them, right? Mm-hmm. But the method or color is the same for all of them. So instances are different, but the method is the same, right? At the same time, because it's the same, you don't even have to call the particular instance because it's all blue anyway, right?
Right.
Makes sense?
It does. Yes.
You can work with the class itself,
right?
Because it's static.
So for wall, I would say it's the same idea because it's within the class, so you don't have to specify the class. But if it will build a different class, you will need to specify it here. Does it make sense, guys? How we can call the static methods? Or are you still kind of confused?
If I can summarize this, that for static method, it's not mandatory to create an object.
Yes,
exactly.
Yes,
exactly.
I think that's a perfect explanation. Yeah.
But for public method, we have to create an
for
object.
regular, yeah, not for static.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
For regular.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's detached. Like,
Yeah.
what do you mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for helping.
come over here.
All right, guys, last one.
Sorry, maybe let's do a quick break. We have, I think, a very good reason to do that.
Yes.
Right? I don't know if you guys heard that, but actually, come here and tell the people what's the deal.
The deal is that I got an offer.
Yeah, we need to put the mic.
Microphone.
Yeah.
Why is it on the star microphone as their Hollywood stars have? So I actually got an offer from Sony PlayStation as a software developer in test.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna be 6 months contract to hire what they call
Yes.
it here. So they were very so they actually made me to accept the offer. They called me, the recruiting agency, they called me and they told, are you accepting it now, just now or never? And they're moving to the next candidate.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they had to fill out this position and
Mm-hmm.
had to be handed by a candidate they prefer,
Mm-hmm.
not being played
Mm-hmm.
by the candidate. So what happened, I had an interview on Tuesday, then Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
Then I got this call and I eventually accepted the offer because well, why risk?
Yeah.
Why risk and cancel all the other interviews?
So, and now I think we're celebrating this little, what do you call it? Occasion.
Victory.
Occasion. It's not a victory.
It's a great
It's an occasion. Now we're going to have some treats.
Okay,
While
congratulations.
you
Yes.
are doing your
Yes,
cooking.
congratulations.
Yeah, I really want to say
Good
it's
job.
because of our great boot camp,
Actually
but it's
can.
not.
You actually can, like
A little
after-
bit maybe.
after 2 weeks of participating in our boot camp, she got the job.
Right? Software developer and test. Like, how do you guys teach that in 2 weeks, right?
Can you imagine what you do when you finish boot camp?
Right? Yeah, she has some background in the field, so
I
it's,
had some background, but the main thing was actually the preparation. But the preparation and what the differences with getting ready to what the interviews will look like, how to make your resume. First, you have to go through the recruiters, for the gatekeepers who keep through this bottleneck of recruiters, so that they submit you and represent, so that they let your candidacy to go forward, to be forwarded to the hiring managers, to the people who actually understand what is written in your resume.
Mhm.
So you have to first bypass those folks, and then you have to speak on the phone with the hiring manager, and this is a completely different set of skills. I never had any experience of getting the job in the US, and that was the most difficult part. So, and actually, your videos helped a lot. Some of their advice on the videos. In my case, well, restructuring the resume and getting convicting yourself in a different attitude of self-representation, and that did the trick.
Mhm.
That was mostly on the emotional part, emotional and self part thing.
Yeah.
All the hard things like writing resumes, mostly on the emotional. And yes, the first 20 interviews were trainings. And then the things started changes. So I got some skills. I went into, first I became very fluent in self-representation. I adjusted how I got the idea how to adjust your story to the requirements, to what they want. And then things began happening faster and faster.
so for how long you were looking in the beginning before these changes?
I went through several stages. My first attempts, I took my first attempts in October last year. So since that, I have several stories since that. So, but mostly the momentum peaked was like 1 month ago. So I'd say in 2 months after you are ready to penetrate the market, after you have your weight with your resume and skills, in 2 months it's really realistically to get the job.
Mhm. Yeah. Did they ask you any questions?
Yes. So with Sony PlayStation, the first phone interview with the actual folks was through WebEx.
Mhm.
So they saw my face and they sent me. I didn't know what to expect or what that would be. Would that be more about talking about myself or actual technical? They didn't give me any clue.
Mhm.
And what happened? They called me, and the guy who was in front of the webcam, he said, "Hey, I'm sending you a Google Doc link." and I want you to code in Google Doc this task. So he was looking online to the Google Doc, and mostly what he was asking me to do, the point of the whole interview with them was not providing the correct solution. The most thing, the most point, the major point is to be able to tell in loud what is your thought flow, what is the flow of your thoughts inside your head. So that was the major part of that interview. Well, if you can come up with the optimal or the best solution for the task, it's definitely would be appreciated. But if you would be silent all of the time, they will not accept you. They will not let you go. So.
Nice.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely very good company to have in your resume.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I also like the style of the interviewing. I also enjoyed that.
I mean, they're looking for hires like forever. Like they always have open positions over there.
Where's the office? It's in Marina or?
Playa Vista.
Like, okay.
It's close.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite close. It's very close to the 405.
Okay.
The Playa Vista, the part which is close to the 405. Well, the office is, I didn't have, they actually didn't give me a tour over there. I see how awesome our office is. No, it's a nice place, though it's a multi-story building, business building. So it's not that fancy as the startups usually have. But probably I saw only one part of it and didn't see another with probably amazing kitchen. This is usually how I assess the company by their kitchen when they clean up the kitchen.
Yeah.
It's a good sign of what are people here.
So what's the project over there?
It's the Sony PlayStation online shop.
Okay.
So yeah, if you go to buy a game, that would be you will be doing that through the thing. I will create the test frameworks.
So it's web application, basically like e-commerce,
yes,
right?
E-commerce, web e-commerce.
What's is it Java based?
Java, Selenium, JavaScript, React.
Nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. So let's have some champagne.
Let's do some. So online folks, are you excited already? It's your turn now.
Not excited.
They're just trying. No. Oh. Oh, wow, fancy.
Don't break anything.
It'd be nice to go to recruition after the champagne. That makes it all.
That's it.
Who was your recruiter? What company?
I've been submitted by Workbridge.
Workbridge.
So from my experience is that as soon as, as you are submitted and as you are ongoing through the interview process, you'd be mostly contacted by the regular recruiter, not the manager. But as soon as you are contacted about the same position you are already submitted and you are interviewing by the manager or the recruiting agency, that means that you probably already have an offer and they want to understand how. That means that they have a very hard score feedback about you as a candidate from the company, and that means that probably your chances to get to have an offer from this company are high. because they don't want you to let you go. They want to understand what are the other stages. Do you have other? Are you interviewing? Are you really excited about this position? How likely you will accept the offer? How they are very interested. They want to sell you and to get their fee on this. So if you are contacted by the manager, this is the sign.
I think I found my last job was Worldbridge as well.
So yeah, we will cover all the stages of the interview process and help you. So I think from our standpoint, there is not really much we could give to Nadia. She's, I mean, it's not like some knowledge. I mean, she knows what she's doing.
I owe you.
But what we helped with was actual interview process and like giving them what they want, and it worked out immediately.
Yeah, actually, it's a great experience to know how to hold the interview, how to speak to people, because you can know everything, but if you suck in the interview.
Yeah, they also look for personality.
Yeah,
they look for match. So, but if you know the drill, then you're on top of it.
Fruits.
Yeah.
So don't be shy and help yourself.
What was the name of your recruiter?
Savannah Brown.
Savannah Brown? Yes, I know.
But then
Wow.
I was mostly speaking to
Holly?
Holly.
Holly?
Yeah. to
Wow,
Holly.
guys, it's you.
Yeah, I know, that's funny. Olga Baitler, she, we figured out some time ago that we both know Jimmy Escobar from another recruiting agency, which is Robert Half Technology.
Okay.
Cheers.
All right, cheers.
Cheers, congratulations. Yes.
Cheers.
Cheers, guys.
Yeah.
Are you gonna keep learning?
Yes, yes, I will remain, well, as much as I can.
That's good to know. So did you have experience in automation before?
Yes.
Yeah, you did? For how long?
I don't want to tell the number. 8 years.
8 years?
Yes.
Here in
Well,
LA?
no, not here in Moscow. Well, I had a major setback in a couple of years because of their immigration. And it was not so much, I have a mixed experience of manual. I started as manual and then, but
Where, here?
no, in Moscow. But I'm graduated from, I have a master's degree in computer science, so it's
So she should be teaching us.
no, that's not true. I might have been teaching you.
So yeah, the whole point here is it's a boot camp. It's like a life hack, right? If you want to follow the formal education process, then you're welcome to go to the, any university or whatever.
That's a long path.
But that's a long path. Here, what we're doing, we're hacking the system.
Local expensive.
3-4 months and you're good to go. You don't have to.
Sometimes 2 weeks.
2 weeks. But it means that you have to really know what you're doing and do it in the most efficient way.
Oops.
But did you automate or develop in Moscow?
Automate.
Automate testing, right?
Yeah.
Testing. Okay. Right.
Are they now looking how we are eating?
Hmm?
Are they now watching how we are eating?
Yeah. Why are they watching me?
I got some.
Can you
I got
do that?
I got some.
Away.
No, it's fine. All right, guys. So there's one topic that I wanted to finish today, and you can like eat. I will just not talk. I think it's
In fact, in companies, it's actually common practice They do like the lunch and the meeting at the same time in the conference room, and it's fine. It's totally fine. So.
But then you should like basically skip your lunch. You have to be in the meeting, so that's why they provided you.
Yeah, so they want to keep you busy.
All right, guys. So let's skip these exercises.
I feel the advantage of on-site.
Right? Imagine if every one of you will bring some champagne.
Yeah, that's why. Yes, yes. This is for encourage the others to go on site.
Mm-hmm.
And not stay online.
And guys, we're building a community here, right? It's not just like some boot camp.
Yes.
Once you get a job, then you may get a job in our companies as well. Mm-hmm. And community is actually pretty small, and I know a lot of people, and usually if like you need to ask about some, like Olga Beidler, she asked me if I knew you, and I was like, well, yes, but we just met like yesterday.
I talked to one recruiter, and she told me that it's really important about the community, like people who you know, like for finding the good job, because it's not just see there's some ads and send the resume. If they know you or someone recommends you, it's increase your chance 1,000,000%. Yeah, it's important.
I think Kazak wants to continue.
Yeah,
I do.
So and I really have to run, guys. So yeah, congratulations one more time, and see you on Tuesday.
Yep. All right, guys. So this will be. We will start interesting part of the Java. It's basically not OOP, but the Java basics. But it's a frequently asked thing in the interviews. Like I was asked by questions like a couple times at least. So it's called recursion, and we have a homework about it, assigned as well. So what the recursion is? So basically, the full idea is recursion. It's just a function. Like, do you know, like in a loops, you basically just specifying the loop, and you're going like over in cycles until condition is met, right? For recursion, it's basically when the function itself, actual function calling itself within this function, and that's why in this case it's kind of like, you know, it's not like a loop. It's more like kind of calling itself again and again when until condition is met, and that's the whole difference. I can give you like in a code example how it looks like. Let me just open the IntelliJ IDE here. Can you guys see anything, or it's? I'm not sure if I can control the brightness. All right. So basically, like if we want to print a loop, right, and if we want to print first, let's say 5 integers, like in a loop, we will do like the same thing. We will just say. Or yeah, do you guys see anything?
Yes.
Okay. So let's say for integer e equals 1, and the end condition would be e less than equal to 5. And after each loop, we will just increment the e by 1, right? And it's actually not the comma. It should be dot and comma sign here. All right, and within this loop, let's just print the system out print ln. All right, so if I'll run it, what it will do, it will just print the first 5 digits, right? Because we're specifying the end condition by 5. So let's say this is a loop, so it's just like running in circles. But let's say how can we implement the same thing using recursion? Let me comment this out, and let me declare the separate function here. So let's name it public void recursion example. That's the integer e. All right, so in recursion, what's the first thing you will need to do? You will need to specify the exit condition here. Let's say if our given integer e equal to 5, what we will need to do, we will need to basically just return that. By returning it, it will just like stop calling it, basically, kind of like exit condition. And if not, what we will need to do, so basically we will need to print system out print.
Yeah, it's not Python.
Yeah. It is what it is, yeah. System out println e. And and after that, let's call this same function here. And I plus 1, right?
And there's a misprint in void.
Oh yeah, thank you. All right, so we have a recursion. Do you guys understand the logic?
So if statement, it's like when it should stop.
Okay, let me declare it first because I think it will make more. E I equal to 1.
No. Just 1.
Oh yeah.
It's not Python.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys right. Non-static method cannot be static context. Okay, probably I need to make static as well, right? Yeah. All right, so let's try to see if it's working. I mean, it's okay. So because it stops when it's 5, we'll probably need to do 6. Yeah. All right. So let's explain what's happening here. So we have a starter point, which is 1, right? We specifically saying let's start this recursion starting with 1. and then we, like in a method itself, we are declaring the exit condition, right? So it's like in the beginning. It's basically kind of like while. You remember while do loops when we specify the exit condition here? And after that, like let's say in the first iteration, like it won't met because it's equal to 1, right? So it will print it. And what it will do again, it will call itself, but with entering point, it will just increment it by 1 itself, and it will do exactly the same thing within this one, like as an additional layer. So it will be like a 5 layers, kind of like in this program, and in the final one, it will match the 6, and it will return everything, like basically not empty thing, and it will like stop.
What is before I? There is some symbol or
Is this one?
yeah,
It says it specifies a parameter because it's basically this one. You're just saying that I.
No, I mean there is something before I.
This one?
It's IntelliJ ideas adds it as a
like a helper.
As a hint.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. It's
Okay.
Yeah.
not in the code.
It's the same thing here. You see,
Oh,
it's the
okay.
same thing. It just specifying its I. Yeah.
So why it can be better than the loop? It's basically do the same thing, and the lines of code almost the same.
Different approach. You can, but you can still be asked this interview. Like, let's say, do you guys remember your palindrome issue exercise?
Yeah,
You didn't do that? Did you guys solve it?
We do remember.
Okay, so you solved it. So you probably use loops, right, to do that? Okay. Do you guys wanna can you guys imagine doing that using a recursion?
Barely.
Barely?
Yes. Well, yeah. And the logic kind of the same, but what's the advantage of recursion?
What's the
Some tasks you cannot resolve well or
Yeah, and you have to use recursion.
yes.
Yeah.
Like what?
Like sorting. When you are sorting, there are specific types of sorts. The very effective, efficient. The algorithms is usually do the sorting within calling the same sorting function in recursions.
Okay.
So you won't be logic won't be so beautiful and well structured.
So I would say that maybe it's not the best. Right? It's a different approach, but not the best practice. I personally don't like recursion at all. I try to avoid it, whatever it costs.
Yeah.
But you can because debugging is painful. I prefer loops actually. It's way easier to debug, but they can ask you to write recursion on the interview or whatever. At least you have to know what it is.
Yeah, I mean, let's say everyone's know how to do like fizz and buzz exercise, right? I mean, maybe you don't, but most experienced people do. And without like asking like, hey, can you resolve like a fizz and buzz? Like they can ask you, hey, can you do it using a recursion instead?
So basically, you can use both.
Yeah, you can use both.
Just for interview purposes, and like you should know how to use it, even if you may not use it in your real.
Yeah, exactly. But you will need to like. You may. I mean, again, like for me, I was asked multiple times about recursion, and I had to write a code. All right, guys. So basically, maybe not this one. Oh yeah. So this is a palindrome exercise using recursion here. So basically, yeah, it seems complicated, but let me explain. We have a function to check if it's a palindrome or not, right?
So we have an exit condition here. Let's say if like a string is empty or is like equal to 1, so it's basically a palindrome as well, right?
Oh, okay, no, never mind.
Yeah, let's talk about the function itself and then explain the declaration. So if a string like equal to 1 or 0, so it's a palindrome, and it's like safe to assume it returns true. Also, like if we don't have like specific like precondition for that. All right, so this is a kind of exiting condition, right? And what's gonna happen next if it doesn't pass here? It will just use indexes. It will just like split your string. It will take the your first word, and basically the last one, the -1. It basically indexed to take the last. I mean, let's say this is a string, right? If you specify the char at -1, it will take the last one, I believe. And this calling the pointers basically. And then it will return the same function, but with, I mean, basically it will check the first one and the last one, right? If they are equal, it will return itself, but cutting this string by -1, and it will do again the same. It will cut it until it will go to 0 or 1, right? And if it doesn't match here, it will just return false, right? And here is basically how it's called here. So basically, if ispal, I mean, if it's returned true, you don't have to specify like ispal like equal to true or false, right? So it will be like true by default. If you're specifying it like that, yeah, it will return the palindrome. If you return false, it will return this not palindrome.
I'm sorry, what does substring do?
It will cut the string. But it's
in its built-in function?
Yes.
Cut the string by 1, right? Oh, that's what
you're specifying the parameter how you want to cut it.
Okay.
Yeah, by the indexes.
Okay, I got it.
So basically,
So here's where the recursion is going, right? In the second return.
Yeah. It's in second return. It's just calling itself. Let me actually specify.
Ready for the.
Yeah, you don't. You will need to explain it as well, the logic. I mean, it should be easy for you once you will solve it. It's mean like you know what you're doing and. Right. So let's print it here. Right, and let's run it again. Unreachable statement. It's probably, I forgot to add square bracket here. Here and here. All right. You see the logic here. It just it's like cut it in the first, and then it cut it again and again, and basically. I'm wondering why it says it's not pattern. Oh, because I have a typo here. Yeah. So again, it's just cutting until it's just the one character, and it's returning this, the first state condition. Does it make sense, guys?
Yes.
Yeah.
Just like it.
Yeah, I will do. You will have a home exercise about the recursion too, about the Fusion bus. So you will have a chance to practice and submit your vision. And yeah, that's basically it. Do you guys have any more questions about the recursion?
I think until we do some homework, we will not have any questions. All questions comes after class.
Yeah, just feel free to Slack or or let me know before our lesson start. All right, so that's basically, we already covered Java basics, and we already covered like OOP principles. So we should be good to start to write with real automation tools, right? Right, guys?
Yes.
Okay. So like you probably like know what the test automation, right? Like as you guys are here. So, but like if you don't, it's basically the program, the process to automating the manual test cases, like in a really simple words. So for that, for test automation, like why to automate? It's like reduce like amount of manual work, like obviously. The second thing, it's basically investment to your company, because like once you all, let's say in my company, when we didn't have any mobile automation, because like a few years ago, like our full regression suite used to take a week to implement manually. Mm-hmm. So right now it takes only like 4 hours. Yeah, because like 80% or like 90% are automated. And this allowed us actually like to release like twice or triple our releases compared to the previous years. Mm-hmm. So it's basically the investment. Like you can see the like value for a business because of that. And yeah, it's also reduced the human errors, because like, can you imagine doing regressions for a full week? Like on a Friday, you will be like, hey, okay, like whatever, I'm gonna pass it. But like your program will not do it. It will see the error, it will just fail. And you will need to figure it out and fix it. And that's why in this case, it's more secure, kind of like assume like that it's actually passed.
I would add here that another very strong point is scalable. So let's say you have 2 QA manual QAs, and it takes them 3 days to regress the whole application. And they really cannot do much. I mean, you can hire 5 more, but it's gonna be just more expensive, right? But when it comes to automation, the execution.
Oh,
Dennis, we cannot hear you.
Sorry, so can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so when it comes to automation, the execution part is free, really. So you can just spin up more instances and run not in 2 threads, but in 10 threads simultaneously, right? The only thing is different is the development time. So you need to spend more time on development, and that's definitely more expensive for company. But when it comes to test execution itself, it's basically like free. You can run it with 1 thread, you can run it with 5 or 10. It's scalable. So this is another very good point of having automation.
Yep. Exactly. All right, so there's like several solutions for automation. The first one, it's you probably heard about the record and playback instruments, like tools, like Selenium IDE or like
Catalog.
Yeah, or like anything else like that. So what's the advantage? Like why we actually learning the Java, right? Why we're solving the algorithms? And if you can just like record and playback. No, not really. I mean, okay.
Because we're not looking for easy ways.
It's also wrong answer. Okay, so the first of all, advantage of record and playback, it's like easy to develop because you just like recording it, right? And that's it. Like it's all done. And it doesn't require the coding knowledge, obviously, because you're just like pressing a button and pressing a button again and saving it. Disadvantages is hard to maintain, because once you record it, you have like a bunch of code, right? And like if like locator change for the web elements, you will need to go over like them, go over this like full script and change it manually. Difficult to read, because you can record anything, but you won't understand like what's going on, because like even if you know the programming language which it was written, it's still like kind of hard to read it, because it's not using the best practices and all of the stuff. So not scalable. You cannot really scale it. You just have a snippet, and you cannot like do much about it. And you cannot really reuse some of the components, which is like was recorded for obvious reason. So that's why there are more disadvantages and advantages, and that's why we're not focusing on the record and playback. So we will go straight to coding, right? Because we already know the Java basics, hopefully. All right, so this is another thing in test automation. It's called test automation pyramid. Have you guys heard anything about it?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So you guys know, right, that the full concept is to get more coverage for a unit test. And then as an additional layer has like a bit less coverage, but like for API test, and only then like a fewer part of UI test. So this is an assumption that's like if your program will be covered by unit test sufficiently, and then by API test as well. So you don't really need to write more UI tests. You will like, because most of the things will be covered, and because like UI tests is like more fragile, so like it's harder to maintain them rather than like unit tests and API tests. So like instead of like, you know, focusing on the UI test, then if like something breaks in a code, just to fix your UI test like everywhere, like it may take like forever, just like focusing on more lower level automation.
Yeah, and then execution time actually the same here. So for example, in my company, we have around 6,000 or 8,000 unit test cases, and it takes around 4 minutes to run them all. On the other hand, we have around 600 automated test cases, which is like 10 times less, but it takes 3.5 hours to run them. So as you can see, which is UI level, right? So there is a significant hit on the performance. And the whole point here is to get the regression done faster.
Yep, thank you, Denis. All right, so if you guys don't have any more questions about the testing pyramid, let's go to the test automation tools. So for web automation, there's like no argue, like Selenium is #1. For a mobile automation, I mean, there's like kind of a variety of choices. I feel like nowadays it's basically either Appium or native frameworks, XUI Test or Espresso. So these both, they are implemented by Google and Apple. Like XUI Test was implemented by Apple, Espresso was implemented by Google. So obviously this one for testing iOS phones and this one for testing Android phones. But Appium basically it's kind of like additional layer. Like Appium can use drivers for XUI Test and Espresso. You can basically, the thing is here that, I mean, because it's Apple, they kind of like forcing you to use a Swift, right? You need to use Swift in order to write mobile tests. In Espresso, it's Java or Kotlin. But let's say if you want to write tests in C#, right, or in Python, you can use Appium for it. So Appium is basically like additional layer, which will translate your tests, which like written in a different language to the exercisable commands for XUI Test driver or Espresso driver. Yeah, we will go like, we have several additional topic about the Appium, like more about it.
Yeah, guys, Appium is basically Selenium for mobile.
Yeah.
So when XCUI Test and Espresso, those are completely different proprietary frameworks. Appium is basically just Selenium. You can actually use the same methods and the same locator techniques when it comes to ID, let's say. So the idea was to be able to switch, like you could technically test web application and even mobile application within the same framework.
Yeah, just makes it
easier. Yeah, it's just a matter of a driver. But well, in reality, it's not that sweet. Anyways.
Yep.
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
Do we automate mobile versions of the web pages through Appium? Or?
Yeah, it's up to you. You can use it in Selenium as well.
Oh.
I mean, it depends. Like, how do you want to automate it? Like, if you want to use like real devices,
really.
You will need to use Appium, right? Okay. But if you just want to squeeze your browser like Chrome, you can use Selenium for it.
Cool.
Yep. All right, so for API automation, there's like no standard because it's easy to automate. You can use like even like standard libraries for Java or like for any other programming languages to do that. Especially for RESTful web services, it's just generating like a post, get, put, delete request, and verifying the API schema and the data itself. So you can use like a tools like SOAP UI, just kind of like more advanced, or like even in Postman you can do like some automation, but it's like because it's easy to do, it's not so complex. You can like choose whatever you want. All right, so that's basically it for today. Do you guys have any more questions to us, to me, or to Dennis, because he's on the line? Yeah. Yeah. So I will post. Yeah. So I will post exercises that we haven't complete in Confluence and in a Slack, and yeah. Feel free to reach out to us, and we'll help you out. All right, guys. Thank you again. Thank you for participating. We will see you on Tuesday.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye, guys.
Have a good weekend.
Thank you, guys.
You too.
Спасибо. Вот это урок сегодня был. Спасибо, Надежда, еще раз.